You have cancer. 3 words that change a life forever. We would like to offer another 3 words. Be an overcomer. Welcome to the 1% Podcast, where our conversations with other cancer warriors, survivors, and caregivers allows us to give you that extra boost you need to face your challenge head on, live life from a new perspective, and forge a path that keeps you moving free and clear. Now, welcome your host and cancer survivor, Truett Taylor.
Welcome to today's episode of the 1% Podcast, the show where we interview young adults who are battling or surviving an unexpected cancer diagnosis. You are not alone, and I promise, by consuming today's content, your soul will be fed with the hope, courage, and inspiration you need to keep fighting for today. I'm excited to be on your journey with you today. If you haven't done so already, be sure to head over to 1percentpodcast.com to sign up for our email list to see the latest news and updates for all our guests on the show. You can also check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1% Podcast. If you want to join in on some of our discussions, please join our Facebook group, the 1% Podcast. To contact me directly for content, questions, or booking events, you can email me at info@1percentpodcast.com. This is episode 37 of the 1% Podcast. I've got a killer guest, Miss Aalia Lanius, on the show today. But before we get to Aalia's interview, let's jump into the 1% moment of truth. Today's 1% moment of truth is about animal-assisted therapy and how it can help people living with cancer. Pet therapy, or it's also referred to as animal-assisted therapy, has been gaining tons of popularity here in the U.S., from animal visits for children in hospitals to those with dementia, and now people with cancer. And studies suggest that there are some important benefits obtained by having a pet as part of your treatment. Many oncologists say a pet is a medication without side effects that has so many benefits. And though most doctors can't explain it, for years now they've seen how instances of having a pet is like an effective drug, and it really does help people. So what are some ways pet therapy can help cancer patients who are struggling with mental and physical illness during their cancer journey? Researchers have often seen a decreased need for pain medications with those who suffer from chronic pain, lowered stress levels, a calming effect, especially with patients with dementia, improved mood, decreased anxiety for hospitalized patients, decreased loneliness and social isolation, and a sense of emotional connection. Pet therapy may even enhance the will to live. So what are some specific benefits for cancer patients? Although fewer studies have been done as compared to people with Alzheimer's, there have been very promising results from cancer patients as well. One study on radiation therapy patients found that those who had dog visits rated their health as better than those who did not have dog visits as part of the therapy. Another study noted that pet therapy during chemotherapy improved depression as well as blood oxygenation. So why does pet therapy work? There have been several theories that have attempted to explain why pet therapy helps those with physical and mental conditions. Intuitively, it seems that the relaxation as well as buffering the stressors would play a big role. But researchers have actually found a physiological basis for this effect. The study on healthcare professionals who were visited by a pet therapy dog found that those who had time with the dog had a decreased level of cortisol in their blood. This stress reduction was noted with as little as just spending 5 minutes with the dog. Pet therapy appears to have another type of effect on chemicals in our body as well when it comes to endorphins. Endorphins are chemicals secreted by the body that act as the body's natural pain relievers. They're responsible for what gives us that runner's high feeling. And at least one study has found that animal-assisted therapy has resulted in increased levels of endorphins in patients who have spent time with a dog. So before you decide to incorporate pet therapy as part of your treatment plan, there's a couple things to consider. Number one, make sure you're not allergic to the type of animals. People who are immunosuppressed sometimes with bone marrow suppression, for example, due to chemotherapy, should talk to their oncologist before considering pet therapy. Or people that have a fear of animals. Sometimes pet therapy is not a good idea for people who are afraid of animals. And finally, remember, pets are pets, so they're not always going to behave in the proper way. So just take that consideration before you consider pet therapy, but definitely the benefits seem to be outweighing the risks. All right, let's move forward with our special guest for today, Miss Aalia Lanius. Aalia is an up-and-coming fiction author, successful entrepreneur, and is dedicated to the betterment of humanity. She is a total rock star. She's the author of the book Tough Love, which is a fictional novel about a businesswoman, wife, and mother as she struggles between her traditional family desires and being unhappy with her unfaithful husband. In the book, the main character, Alina, feels she isn't being honest with herself or the world as she learns that the cancer she once beat has returned, bringing her face to face with a choice, her life or her marriage. You guys definitely want to check this out. It's available on Amazon right now. And once you start reading, I promise you won't be able to put the book down. So welcome my guest today, Miss Aalia Lanius. Hey, Aalia, welcome to the 1% Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. Hi, Truett.
Great. How are things going in LA? It looks like it's sunny over there.
Well, we had some rain yesterday, so of course, everyone freaked out.
Yeah.
Everyone starts hydroplaning. No one knows how to behave. Whoa, it's raining. Yeah. So, I stayed inside all day long.
Gotcha. It's like in the South, if it snows, well, it doesn't really snow so much here. There's ice everywhere, and schools shut down with the thought of snow, not with nothing actually on the ground. So we always get made fun of for that as well too. But not to mention the way we speak, but that's okay.
It's funny. I had a dream last night that it was snowing. That's so you made me remember that. Is that not weird? I must want it to snow here in California and really throw everyone off. Well, at least in LA. I mean, obviously I can look on the mountains and see snow,
Yeah.
But here, LA proper, yeah, people will freak out.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you a part of the show. I've been going through all of your media online. You've got an amazing story. You've got a really cool background, and I love the novel that you have out right now. Just reading through excerpts of it, and we'll talk more about that with all of our listeners. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for everyone who maybe hasn't checked you out on social media yet? Tell everyone a little bit about who Aalia is.
Thank you. Well, I mean, really what I've come to learn to be about, if anything, is one, being a writer that puts out stories that to me make a difference. I love writing, and I'm not a romance writer. I definitely am a drama writer, or, there's always this message. So I released my first book, and I'm releasing my second one. I'm a mother of 4 between the ages of 22 and 2 years old. So I'm crazy. That lets everyone know I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And, that wasn't planned, by the way. Well, the 4th one was planned, but it was just that in general wasn't planned when I probably started having kids. So, I'm married now. I'm divorced. In fact, in my book, that's kind of the thing. I share my divorce during my facing cancer, or the character faces cancer, but it is based on my life as a biographical fiction. And, like I said, the second thing I'm about is sharing. To be honest, what I'm about on social media is sharing my embarrassing, sometimes my stories, I'm proud of them. Sometimes I'm embarrassed of them, but regardless, I share them to help other people. Mm-hmm. I feel empowered when I do that. I learn to give myself permission. And that's why a lot of people know my brand to be Unsugarcoated, mm-hmm. because I'm not really interested in saying things that you just want to hear. Like when you first, when people start first dating and you're dating, and I always say the first 6 months, you really don't know each other, because all you're doing is telling each other what you think the other one wants to hear. And no, that's not me, So that's what I'm about. And I've just enjoyed, I go out and really authentically and organically try to grow my platform. And when I started this, I had really just a handful of people that I was connected with, because I prefer to say friends, not followers, when it comes to social media. But I'm proud to be a micro influencer. It just shares my truth, and hopefully by sharing my truth, I can help other people face their own.
Yeah. So just going back to something you just said, like why do you feel like it's important for you to be able to be so unsugarcoated and authentic with people?
I spent my life being I was raised in a very conservative family. I was raised with that concept of children are seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. I actually had an incident when I was 18 years old where I ended up in jail, Truett, at 18, because I was afraid. Literally, as crazy as it sounds. I had an incident where I could have dealt with it. I had taken a car for a test drive. The guy said, "Go take it for a little bit. Go take it," and I said, by myself. And I did. And then, unfortunately, this was still the 90s. They didn't allow you to take the car for too long, but I'm 18. So by the time I kind of get done, the guy starts calling, and I became afraid. I became afraid of confronting what was going to happen once I took the car back. And so I didn't. And then 3 days later, when the cops arrived on the doorstep of my family, because of course I had left my driver's license, I was never intending to take this car. I went to jail. It's 18 for grand theft auto. And
Nice.
it sounds horrible. I know, right? Talk about unsugarcoated. Now, I didn't share that story for a long time because I was ashamed of it.
Right.
And because, for so long I was taught that, that facade that you give the world, I was brought up in that family, you don't tell the world your problems. And, as much as I can understand that philosophy to protect your family, it's not always the right way. And I found for me, it's not. I just suppressed who I was for so long. Then I grew up, I got married to my previous husband, and everyone saw this beautiful life, but I was completely hiding my truth and I wasn't living my truth. So now, at 43 years old, although this did start a few years ago, thankfully, I really, really became emboldened. And I became tired of trying to sell the facade that I'm perfect, to make other people feel like they can trust me. Just because I did something stupid at 18, you can still trust me. I was 18, for goodness sakes. What 18-year-old, maybe some people didn't get caught, but I guarantee you there are some 18-year-olds that did some stupid stuff out there. So, I'm just honest enough to share it now. Do you know why? Because somewhere out there, because when I was in that jail cell for 3 months at 18, I read Maya Angelou. And I read that she had ran a brothel. And I said, if this woman right here, after I knew everything about her, could become Maya Angelou after such an interesting beginning and a difficult beginning, then I had hope. And so I want to be able to give somebody else that hope. And that's why being unsugarcoated is extremely important for me, because I can't give them hope if I'm not honest.
Yeah, I totally agree. People recognize with real and authentic people more anyways, in my opinion. They get have a deeper connection with that because, real life is something that everyone deals with. It's not pretty all the time. And no matter what you try to put out there, that's just not the way it really is. So
no, for sure.
So you said you were diagnosed with cancer 3 different times. Is that correct?
Well, no. So I had 2 different types of cancers and I had a recurrence. So I'm a 3-time survivor.
Perfect.
And I was first diagnosed at 33 with the first one, which was cervical cancer, stage 1. Which so both of my cancers, funny and ironically enough, were caught very early. But the second one was a lot more, it's the fastest killing cancer. So that one I was diagnosed with 9 months later. It was esophageal cancer, stage 1 again. It was very interesting. I had to learn to become my own advocate because I will tell you, Truett, I was going through that typical stuff where my doctor I said, there's something else going on here. And he was like, well, you're in a clinical trial. Because even though I was stage 1A, I went through a clinical trial with Stanford, and I took advantage of any opportunity to make sure it didn't come back. Right. So, but then 9 months later, when I went through the second diagnosis, I kept telling him there's something else going on. And it was very strange because I was exhibiting late stage symptoms, but it turns out I was early. So I often say, God, the universe, whatever gave me the first so that they could find the second one so quickly, because my grandfather actually passed away from that type of cancer within 9 months. When he was diagnosed, it was stage 4. Yeah. And that was the other thing. I was a young woman with no smoking history, no history of GERD, and yet I was being given this diagnosis. I went through treatment. I did immunotherapy and a combination of oral chemotherapy and surgery. So I had 2 surgical procedures where they did the mucosal resection. And then, it's kind of always weird when they tell you, okay, well, if this doesn't work, then the next stage is radiation and some other, and it's like, so you kind of hope and pray you don't get to that stage. In my case, I didn't, but I did recur. So I had 2 surgeries, and the second surgery was with the other recurrence. So I was in remission for 3 years, and then I recurred. And that's always scary because, it's funny. I remember the day that I was told I went into remission more than the day that I was diagnosed. I cried harder. Do you know why? Right? Because I was so thankful, but then I was like, oh my God, is this stuff going to come back?
Yeah.
Your mind immediately transition. Okay, I'm clean now. But then, I remember sharing with, I wish I could move a CT scan in my room just so each week I could make sure I was okay.
Yeah.
And so 3 years later, and thankfully with that one, the second recurrence on my esophageal, we did another mucosal resection. I did some chemo, and I've been okay since then. I went into remission 5 months later officially, and that was in 2014.
Wow.
So now we're 5 years out, almost 5 years out.
So the 5-year mark is a very important mark, obviously, right? Where you can call yourself, well, my situation.
Well, then I can get life insurance.
Right. Exactly. So you were 33 when you were diagnosed with cervical cancer, and then esophageal, as you said, was a year later, or
Yes, 9 months later.
9 months later, and then it recurred
3 years later.
3 years later than that. Okay. Just trying to get your timeline down. As you're going through these types of cancer, whenever you first heard the words you have cancer, what was, do you remember what the first thought that came to your mind was?
Oh, sure. Well, in my case, you remember I mentioned my grandfather. So I don't know if there's other people with a lot of cancer. I know people with no cancer in their family, and maybe they can't relate to this. I was not one of those people. My grandfather had passed from cancer. His mother, his 3 brothers, they all passed from cancer. And it was very, there was always this awareness, and which was probably why I was always going to the doctor, and I was very, persistent about making sure I got my checkups done. And because also with my cervical cancer, I was HPV negative. I was told I should have not had cervical cancer again. So 2 cancers I shouldn't have had. When the doctor tells you that and they kind of just say, cancer just likes you. You're like, wait a minute. These are not the words I want to hear, doc. No. Cancer does not like me. And my thoughts initially were, I remember my doctor handed me a prescription for an antidepressant, which I promptly handed back to her because I said, I've been through tougher things. And if you know my background, I mean, by this time I'd already been through a lot of stuff. So I was like, okay. But a year later, I came back for that same prescription. I said, give it, give it, because now I'm understanding. And I think I had such a horrible experience because I kept it to myself. My marriage at the time, this was still with my ex-husband, and we had difficulties when our marriage was always, we were together for 14 years and marriage was just difficult. And that was not a time where we were very strong, and I didn't feel I had that support. We ended up separating. He left, and I had 3 kids to take care of, and I was struggling with being sick and trying to be well and take care of them. And doing that on my own was the worst thing that I could have ever done. And because his family wasn't really supportive, I didn't even want them to know Truett, because you know what I thought? I thought if they find out I have cancer, they're going to be like, good. Then when she dies, we can find him another wife and we'll move forward. I mean, I literally was afraid of being replaced. So I was kind of defiant. I was like, I'm not telling you guys anything. But I found myself feeling very alone. Mm-hmm. And about that time, within that year, I was in the hospital multiple times. You know how it goes. I mean, people look, and it wasn't that I necessarily looked bad back then, I can say, because my doctor used to say, well, you're my prettiest patient, which I'd want to sock him in the face for that. I'm like, because I don't feel like your prettiest patient. Let me assure you of that. Just because I put on some makeup, don't get it twisted. That's just my grandmother in my head saying, you can't go out of the house without some makeup and lipstick. Okay. At least some mascara and lipstick. So I felt, that he didn't understand me, as of course he didn't. So I was in a hospital bed. My kids had been taken to Northern California to stay with my sister. And all I had was my laptop and a Wi-Fi connection, because, this is like 10 years ago. So Wi-Fi wasn't always free everywhere. So I was like, oh, they've got a Wi-Fi. Okay. And I plugged in, Young Cancer Support Group. And up popped an organization at that time that was called, now it's called Stupid Cancer, but back then it was, oh my God, OMG, I'm too young for this. And it was called Stupid Cancer. And so I jumped on and I became affiliated with some amazing individuals that literally reached through that laptop and saved me. I don't even know how to put it any other way than that. Funny enough, I do podcasts all the time, Truett. I don't normally keep tissue by me, but I can tell you're already giving me the shaky voice. So I'm going to try and do this so that I can actually really share without people trying to hear me through some Kim Kardashian crying. Right. But yeah, that was definitely one of my lowest times. Yeah. I think first of all, what you're going through at that time is very humiliating. Mm-hmm. You can barely stand, you're getting up, you're going to the bathroom and peeing in something where someone comes, and it's just everything is everything, that you knew is just kind of gone.
So at the time you had cancer, you were a mother, you had 3 children, and you were going through, let's say unhealthy or a broken marriage or type relationship.
A dysfunctional relationship.
Dysfunctional. Yeah. We'll put it that way. What did you do in those times, to really stay sane, or to like, where did you go for your strength when you were at those lowest moments?
That was it. Those friends that became my crutches. I always talk about that. If you break your leg, you don't walk around on a broken leg. That'd be foolish. It's okay to use that support. And I'm very thankful for some of the most amazing individuals. Through the next year, those friends saved me. Like my best friend, who's my publicist, as you've met, she actually told me to get up off wait, am I allowed to curse?
Yeah, that's fine.
She told me through the computer, get up off your ass and fight for those kids.
Right.
Because, I think that when you look at how relationships affect you when you're going through that, you feel, you feel like I'm supposed to be supported by this person. If they were going through it, I wouldn't do this. And so I pitied myself a bit. And it took my friends to say, look, you can't be pitying yourself. We're not going to do that. And they taught me. Then 7 of those friends that I made, and it was a pretty big circle, but 7 of those people died the first year that I battled. So what happened, and what did really truly and has become my greatest strength in life since that time was I've learned to not waste time, precious time that other people have been given. And I say this over and over and over, because I cried for nearly a year one time after one of my friends passed away, kissing my son every night, because I knew she had a son that she would have loved to have been there and kissed goodnight. So at first it hurt so much, but then it came to a point where I realized she would be pretty pissed off at me if I was wasting my time. Mm-hmm. So I stopped, and I definitely focused on my health. I became stronger. Funny enough, my ex-husband, he's now my ex-husband. We were separated, as I had mentioned. Then when I got stronger, when those people started infusing me with hope and encouragement, and I started saying, yeah, you know what? I can do this. I'm not taking this line down. But obviously I became attractive again to my ex-husband at the time, and he came back, and we kind of went through what I consider like a little honeymoon phase. We were very close. I was very, I had taken a different approach to life. I said, I'm not going to be reactive. I'm going to be proactive. Right. I'm not going to sit at the bottom of this well and cry that I'm down here. I'm going to figure out how to get out. And so that became my my operation. Wait, what is it called? My MO, mission operandi. And so lately it's either mom brain, chemo brain. I don't know what it is, but I've been saying things backwards. I swear I know how to say them correctly. So that's what became really, really important to me. So 3 years later, when I did recur and I got that phone call that I dreaded, that it had come back, I was much more different. And actually, you know what I want to say? No, I have to go back to tell you what my lowest point in the last situation was. My lowest point ever, maybe even, and to some degree, I think when these are always low points, but my lowest point was when I questioned why I had even survived cancer. Yeah. Because of circumstances in my life that didn't make me feel like, didn't make me feel happy. Like, what had I, especially with my marriage at the time, it was a very toxic relationship. And I have said this to other people, listen, once you take chemo and you ingest or you feel that go through your body, you're cool on toxic relationships after that. It's like, I'm good. I don't want anything toxic. And so when I started to sense things were not right, and it was actually because my ex-husband was having an affair during my whole issue, I cut him loose. I mean, we went through a year of back and forth, but I was really defiant. I was just, I'm not going to live my life like this. I did not survive cancer to deal with this. And that's it. So eventually our marriage ended, and I was, ready to move forward in my life. And I did.
So cancer has a way of making you live a lot more of an intentional life, I would say. And it makes, for me, and I've heard this from a lot of people, it makes you really reevaluate all of your relationships, whether it's your relationship with your spouse, your kids, your parents, your friends, all those things. And a lot of people I talk to, like if you were having a difficult time before, sometimes ending that marriage is one of the best things for you because it allows you that clean slate to keep moving forward. And I'm not divorce is never a happy thing, coming from a divorce previously myself, but like, it's one of those things where it really, as long as you learn from it, I think it definitely can benefit you for the next relationship that you have, because, no matter, love's not enough sometimes. I hate to say that, but it's, you can love somebody as much as you want, but if you can't do what you need to do every single day, like to get along, to be partners together, then it's going to make a really tough relationship.
Sure. I mean, and especially when you're in the most difficult part of your life and you need that support. It's funny, that's why my book was something I had to write, because in it, Truett, I think as individuals, we go through our journey and we learn, like you said, well, hopefully some of us learn. I know I've learned, and I learned that, like Tina Turner said, what's love got to do with it? Love is great. Love is a powerful emotion, but it confuses people for what could be for the moment, for temporary, for months, for years. But it's so much harder to meet the demands of a love that can last for years, to be honest. And I'm going to even say this, even in the cancer community, there was a time when I actually opened up to anybody who had actually had cancer to some degree. But then there's times when you're like, okay, just because you have cancer, maybe we're not compatible as I thought for like a as intense of a friendship, but I mean, that's just being honest. Like, I'm not going to, because not necessarily does that always, it can create a bond, but that doesn't always mean that the other person and you should be friends. And I say that with any relationship, you know what I mean? That's my point. Like in a marriage, and when you're dealing with cancer and you're taking care of kids and you're struggling just to stand up in the shower, if you don't have a partner who's going to support you, and not only that, if you're going to live to fight and be in this life, and then years down look and say, I spent my life with this person and it didn't really give me what I needed, then you feel like you're wasted. And again, as we've said, like, we don't play. Like, I just, time to me is the most valuable commodity, whatever I have. I mean, not commodity, but like, it is the most precious thing to me, time. If I get on my husband, if he says I'm like, don't have me waiting around for you. I love you, but don't have me waiting around for you. If you're going to be home in 30 minutes, then be home in 30 minutes. Don't say 5. And then I'm sitting here going, okay, I could have been doing something else, because, that's just it. I mean, I think we recognize that there is only so much time we're going to have. Yeah. And if we're not doing what we want to do, then we feel like we're losing that time. And I don't want to.
I was speaking with someone recently, and I don't know why. I think if you are healthy, I was always been a healthy person. I never had a cavity, and then all of a sudden I had stage 3 colon cancer. So it was kind of wild. But I always wanted to live a long life, because living a long life, you think you have more experience, you think you have time, right, to do more things. But I was speaking with someone the other day, and she's actually been on chemo for 7 years straight. She's had over 150 rounds of chemo. And she told me, she's like, I don't worry about living a long life. I worry about living a deeper and wider life every day. And it just blew my mind. And so that's almost like a new philosophy I've taken on, is no one knows when they're going to die. You cannot predict that, but you can have more of a say in what you do every single day and how intentional you are, the people you connect with. I've always heard there's 3 different levels of love. You've got love for a reason, love for a season, and love for a lifetime kind of thing. So you may have people that come in your life just specifically they need you're pouring some love right now, and then maybe it's a season. Then there's very few people that will be in your life for a lifetime that you can love and stuff like that.
Sure. So, well, I mean, it's also, I think it depends on the person. Like my cousin, she was married to a singer that some people may know, some people may not, but his name is Scott Weiland, and he passed away. He was the lead singer of Stone Temple Pilots. My first cousin was his wife and mother of his children. And, it's funny because when he passed away, I was, people were always like, well, Mary was the love of his life and this and that. And as a person who saw their relationship and how, like the demons of a person's soul can really, it doesn't matter how much you loved each other. It's if you can't control those demons within yourself. And I think that even when you become kind of face to face with cancer, all those things kind of get addressed.
Yeah.
Because I know people who have had eating disorders and then get, deal with cancer. And then it's like, suddenly it's like, okay, wait, now I don't want to make myself sick because now I need to be here,
Yeah.
And you want to fight. Suddenly you want to fight for your life. You're not so interested in like tearing your, being self, where you, what's the word I'm looking for right now? When you're self-deteriorating yourself, or self-harming, like,
right.
I deal with a lot of people that come to me with those issues.
So I know people may have different thoughts about what I'm about to say next, but in my head, I'm thinking like, yeah, cancer is a terrible thing and no one needs cancer to live like a great life and all those things. But sometimes, I think even though we have things like that happen to us, for me, I feel like it's like God showing me like, hey, I love you enough to get you back on track so you can do the things that you're supposed to do in a way. And it doesn't have to be cancer. It could be other things that we have happen in our life that really get us back on the right track. But it's all positive if you look for it in that way. Like it may be a extenuating circumstance that you don't want to be a part of, but if it gets you back on the right track, was it worth it?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I often say. I'm not happy that I happen to have cancer or had to face it. But I am thankful to know an incredible community of people and individuals that fight. And, it is so true what you had said earlier. It does boil down to a quality of life.
Yeah. Quality
of life, because from A to Z, I remember very distinctly having one of my friends pass away. And it was unexpected. We were all thought she was doing okay and getting text messages from her. And then suddenly it was her husband jumping on Facebook and saying, we're sorry to let you know, but she passed. And, I remember I was so struck. And one thing my ex-husband did say at that time was probably some of the wisest words that I could have heard at that time. And he just said, and he'd actually gone to college with her. That's how I knew her originally. And he said, there's nothing that could have come in between her and the moment that she was going to go. Yeah. And those were good words for me, because here's why. In our community, we know some rock stars, man. I mean, I can't say many people that I know that I'm like, when they died, it was like that they didn't deserve to live, that they weren't fighting for life. I mean, my best friend, one of my other I have I have many best friends, but, two of my closer ones, the other one is a stage 4 with Mets. She's been fighting for 16 years. And you talk about, and she's on her 5th, and she was told on this 5th one, you won't not ever do chemo again, and it's one of those situations, a stage 4 with Mets. And that's, a lot of people have said to me, well, that's so depressing. But, I mean, the thing is, as we've all learned, between point A and point Z, whatever that is, however long it is, we can't determine when that Z moment is going to happen, but we can determine what's going to happen, how we're going to react, how we're going to live, how we're going to, focus on things between the A to Z. Right. Because some people do get so negative, and it's very easy. I'm still, I'm a woman with children. Mm-hmm. I'm in a community where, true, a lot of my friends, they weren't able to have children as a result of cancer. And so sometimes, I live with a lot of guilt, and I mean, I know that people will say, you shouldn't have, but I don't care. I do. I do. I mean, I feel guilty for sometimes living, or for sometimes being the one that got to say she's in remission, the one who gets to have the kids, even though I deal with my own struggles. I have 2 autoimmune diseases that cancer left me with. Mm-hmm. One of them has no cure. They're actually quite difficult for me. And it's one of those invisible diseases, being autoimmune diseases. So I don't show it, but I was telling you before we got on here, I had to do a wonderful pulmonary lung function test this week, which was so much fun. I swear that guy must love his job. The jokes from sitting me in a chair, and oh my God, it was like, and somebody was like, were you making him feel uncomfortable? I was like, no, I was so embarrassed. Like, what are you talking about? I'm going to this test. It's weird. He's telling me to blow, and that I'm not blowing hard enough. And I'm like, but that's why I'm here, because I can't breathe. Right. So, but I say that truly, like, quality of life is something that it just becomes essential. It's not so much, I could survive cancer and die in a car accident tomorrow, for goodness sakes. It's not just because I'm in remission doesn't mean that that's going to be, oh, now I'm safe, Yeah. And but I don't find it, there's another saying, for a bad that a good doesn't come. And it's a saying that I remember always hearing as a child, and it's definitely along the line of, the silver lining, but, the yin and the yang, you can't have the good without the bad. And but people always forget there's always some good that usually comes out of even the bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can't see it, but I don't live my life trying to figure that part out. I just live my life trying to understand what my purpose is in this moment, right now, today, in the next week, in the next years. And as long as I keep, but it's so funny. Is it only me that goes around thinking like, I'm so aware that I kind of laughed the other day. I said, well, all my photos are on AOL with my password. God forbid something happens to me. How are my kids going to get to all of them? And I was like, I probably should back those up, because we all go around with like, hey, we're going to be here forever. And none of that stuff has to be planned out, right? But I don't know. Am I alone, or do you ever think to yourself, like, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's weird how we, I don't know, like you kind of get wrapped up in certain things and you don't realize, I don't know. It's especially with, like you mentioned earlier, like chemo brain and stuff. I don't remember half the stuff. I have to write down everything anyways. I don't remember half of my passwords. Not for my Apple, phone to save all of them for me. But yeah,
I just keep going through them until I pick one.
You just don't remember certain things. But then again, like maybe seeing your kids or me seeing something else would like kind of bring back that reminder every day. Like, if you were speaking to someone right now who maybe is going through some of their lowest point, maybe they've been divorced or maybe they're going through a really tough relationship. They have cancer. They have kids to worry about as well too. And, if that person's listening right now and you could give them one or two pieces of advice or one or two truths, what would you say to that person?
Truth number one would be not to isolate themselves. Our community is full of amazing people. And it saved my life. The moment I reached out and allowed someone to help me to understand, there's amazing organizations. Stupid Cancer is one I definitely highly recommend. Every year they have an annual event that brings people together. You can talk about stuff. I know I'm doing an event where it's not going to be specifically on cancer, but it will be open. But the point is to not just stay in that little box that we can sometimes just stay in, not answering text messages, not taking the phone calls because we don't want to talk about it. I know someone out there knows what I'm talking about. Yep. And it is so important to reach out. There's also another one called Immerman Angels that was founded by a very good friend of mine that I admire, Johnny Immerman in Chicago, which is where they take one person who survived one type of cancer and they put them with another going through it. So you don't have to be alone. And that's my second thing. You are not alone. You're not alone. And yes, I can't come to your house and cook you dinner like the way that I would want to if you're having a bad day. But I tell you what, even the positive energy and the positive vibes and just knowing that someone else gave a shit that I was having a bad day or could relate, that meant a lot. And so that's just, I think that the more you realize you're not alone and you don't have to be ashamed of it, because society definitely can try to put that little shame cap, but you don't have to bust out from that, know? I mean, it is what it is. Like, I get it. Like, I'm a woman too. I know being bald was not something like, I didn't actually lose all my hair, but my best friends, I've had to take them when they get their hair cut before the hair falling out. And I know, I did lose all my eyebrows. I'm like, yes, my eyebrows are tattooed because I had lost all my eyebrows. And I remember thinking, one of my friends said, if I ever wrote a book, it'd say, hair is overrated and eyebrows are not. And I started laughing because I knew exactly what she was talking about. Waking up and I'm like, I'm naked. Why do I look like something out of a, Harry Potter film or something like? But, I get it. But the biggest piece for me is that, like, to be afraid of the inevitable is literally a waste of our energy. I mean, we're still going to be afraid of it, but it's a waste of our energy to focus on that. All we can do is focus on today. Mm-hmm. And actually, because I speak to a lot of people, I speak on my social media accounts and stuff. And I don't, Truett, I talk to people that I actually had one person, I was doing a live and I was saying, hang in there, and I was giving my little, cheerleader hurrah. And he sent me a message afterwards and he says, no offense, but what have you been through? Now, he didn't know my backstory.
Right.
All he saw was me.
Yep.
And he didn't understand. So when I came back and I said, well, let me see, where would you like to start? And then by the end of it, he was like, okay, wait, I'm so sorry.
Yep.
I completely misjudged you. It's like, exactly, you did. And, not everybody has this easy answer. I have some people who their problems are, pretty relatively easy, and some people who are living in their car, dealing with kidney transplants, or literally facing life or death with cancer. So it's not always that easy answer of like, I'm going to be honest. I went to one cancer conference in Florida last year. And I went to Florida with one of my best friends who actually fell ill. We were there to have fun. I was there to promote my book and in the cancer community. And day 2, I'm staying the night in the hospital with my friend who is now, they're telling her she needs, blood transfusion. I'm getting very scared. I'm getting very nervous. I'm crying. I'm like, wait. And so there was a session that was about God and cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went in there, the woman who spoke was very, very lovely. Very lovely. I mean that. She was lovely. She kind of had that little, she was a short Black woman. She was giving a little preacher on. And I respected and I understand that. But a woman next to me who's stage 4, she said, I'm concerned because I know I'm going to go, and there's some people that just can say, I know at some point I'm going to go. And she said, my son just has lost his faith in God and I don't know what to do. And, the woman responded, well, she said simply, oh, well, he's in God's hands. And while I understand that's a really sweet thing to say, and to some extent that's true, that's not enough. To me, it was very sugar-coated. It was a very sugar-coated response to something. I knew in that moment too, this woman had never had cancer, because that's like, we believe in God, but I feel like actually that God exists, but also God is within us. We are very amazing beings. We are miracles of life, how we take place, everything. There is a certain amount of God that's within us. I think it's even that voice that says, don't do this, do that, whatever. But we have to take action, and we cannot just live this life blissfully naive.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I didn't feel that the answer she gave her was enough was even really giving her an answer. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, to me, the answer is, well, all you can do is keep telling your son, show your son who God is in you, and show that even through this road that you can be positive and that you can just embrace life as much as you can. And one day that will hopefully stay with him no matter what. But just presuming that everything's okay and everything is that's like not really the way that I do things. So
just hearing you say that, he's probably, when people find out bad news, or they want to blame someone or something sometimes, and he was probably blaming God. Like maybe that's why, I don't know, maybe that's why he lost his faith, is because God gave my mom cancer and she's going to die now. You know what I mean? Kind of situation.
That's exactly what she had said actually too. She had said that. She said, I'm worried about him because he's asking, why does that woman get to be in remission and why don't you? And that was and so to just simply say, as beautiful as it sounds, well, he's in God's hands. Okay. But there's a second part to that. And I'm not just trying to focus on that question. I mean, in general, how are we really approaching life? Are we being realistic, or are we being naive and blissful to it? Because that's not going to work. We have to live life with intention.
Absolutely. And some things you just can't explain. Like, I don't know why I survived. You probably don't know why you survived yet either. Like, it's just some things you just don't know the answers to. And I think that you just have to tell people that, like, I don't know, like that. I just really don't know. And that's the truthful, honest answer that why some people survive and some people don't. I talked to a lot of people about survivor's guilt, and sometimes that goes back to worthiness a little bit as well too. Like, why am I worthy enough to survive when someone else didn't? And so I know I've had those thoughts as well too. Like, well, why was it me and not the person that was sitting next to me in the chemo chair? And
sure.
Why am I worthy over them? Because I don't feel like it. And there's no answer to that in a lot of ways.
Sure.
But I'm sure we could go down a long road with all that and stuff too. But I want to talk about what your life's like now. So you got past, so you had the marriage thing going on and the cancer thing going on a couple times, and you got out of all that and you kind of started over. And obviously your life's a lot different now. You're approaching 5 years of being cancer free. So congratulations on that. Is that your cancer dance? Is that your, I don't have cancer dance?
Yeah,
we all got one. So
we need to gift that, boomerang that.
So let's talk about your first book. Like, what inspired you to write Tough Love? Like, what is it?
Well, I've always wanted to write. Like, it's actually one of the reasons why I went to law school. In fact, it was so funny. My first assignment, my professor was like, "You're not an undergrad anymore. We don't really want the pretty explanations. We just want your elements. Be brief." And I was like, but no. Which I didn't actually finish because I recurred and I had dropped out of law school. I said my going back to quality of life or stressing out over here trying to, first I was up for the challenge, but then when I recurred, I was like, no, priorities. But it's okay. I just married an attorney. So I got remarried and now I'm married because I was actually doing entertainment law too. So anyway, what made me write it? I always knew that I wanted to write a book about my life in general. And even, I wasn't certain what part, because I felt if I ever wrote a book from like beginning to current day, people would just be like, there's no way that much stuff could have happened to one person. Right. And they'd be confused. And so I said, all right, well, you know what? I'm going to write a book and I'm going to pick this time. What made me do that was I had a lot of women who knew not so much Instagram, I was never really, but all the people that I'd known from the cancer community and my family and whatnot, they all had seen on Facebook. Without me being vocal, I wasn't really one of those people who said everything, but people knew I went through a divorce. They knew that I went from suddenly being, married, and then but people knew me. They said, okay, if she's getting divorced, there must be something. But a lot of people didn't know. They just saw me come back. They saw me be resilient. And I would get so many messages to this day. I get messages from other cancer fighters, from people who haven't fought cancer, but this, humbly, they tell me that my story has really helped them. And I felt that was great, but then I was like, but you don't even know it really. I didn't really share it with you guys. You guys just saw me get out of this bad relationship, get into this new, and I'm traveling the world and having fun. And it's like, I've never really shared what happened. And so only the people close to me knew. So it wasn't that I wrote the book to put my ex-husband on blast, because, I remember when he found out, he was like, I heard you wrote a book about me. I was like, no, I didn't write a book about you. Because if I'd have written this nonfiction, it would have sold so much better because people would have loved that stuff, But I didn't do it for healing. I was already healed by the time that I wrote it, but I did it to empower others. Because by knowing my story, I felt that a lot more people could understand. I know so many women who get out of one relationship, cancer or no cancer, and then they're trying to sort out what they're going to do in their life, or they're dealing with those fears of who will love me again, who will want me again. And then even how do you date again? How do you date? How do you start that process? And so for me, I shared that process, and I shared that I was not going to going back to honesty. I shared that I wasn't going to be doing the fake thing. I wasn't going to do I like long walks on the beach and I'm really nice and the most patient person in the world. I remember on the first date, I told my husband, and I said, no, I'm not patient. As a matter of fact, I'm very impatient. Yeah. So let me just kind of give you the upside on that. But not to get married again, by the way, that was not for me. That was just in general. So I didn't even know if I wanted to get married again, but I felt it was important to share that. And again, the message of Tough Love is truly that there is always hope, even in the dark, because I didn't know if I was going to beat cancer in that last time. But I knew that I was not going to let it define my life. Right. And I think that's what a lot of us say. You can take so much stuff from me, cancer, but you cannot define my life. Right. And my outcome. And that's how I took it. I mean, some people, may say, wow, you got out of a marriage and then no, I didn't go looking to get married again. I just looked to spend my time with people who were worthy of being with me. There you go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
your time is valuable. It's so much more valuable now. So you can only spend it on people who are, will take that value and appreciate it.
The second component to the book really is us recognizing how much of a miracle we are. I mean, I struggled with body image, self-love, on the exterior, I was very confident. And I was to a point, like in business, I was very, very confident through it. I mean, I've owned my own business from the time I was 25. With my ex-husband, we made a multi-million-dollar company together. I know business and I'm very confident in that. But that same confidence that you would see for business at that time, my self-image of who I saw, I mean, I saw somebody who was not beautiful, who was not worthy of love, who, because that's how I allowed someone to make me feel. I allowed someone else to set my standard.
Right.
And I stopped doing that. And that's the message of the book. Don't do that. You can move forward after you. If you've ever been one of those people who said, I can't live without you. And then you realize, wait, not only can I live without you, but I might actually live in a really amazing life as a result of that, and so, yeah, so that was what caused me to write that one.
So if someone wanted to pick up a copy of Tough Love, where would they go?
They can go to either my website and get one directly signed from me, or on virtually almost any book retailer does have it. Even if they don't have it in the store, like Barnes and Nobles will send it for free if you go in there and they don't have it in stock. But in other countries too, most major bookstores, Waterstones in the UK, Canada, they cannot order. Or you can order through my website. Currently, the website is www.relationshipsunsugarcoated.com.
Relationshipsunsugarcoated.com.
Yes.
Perfect. If someone wants to reach out to you to connect with you, maybe they have some questions about what you have going on. I know you have something new coming up called Unsugarcoated Media that you're working on, and another book. If someone wants to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way is actually through social media. In my Instagram account, it really is me, and I really do use that to connect with a lot of people. I don't even use my Facebook as much, but I do have a page on there, Aalia Unsugarcoated, the author, and on Instagram, my name is Aalia, my first name, AALIA _unsugarcoated, and that's me. And I do answer all my messages.
Perfect. Well, your story is awesome, and it's still being written. This has been a chapter in your life that's, you have another chapter coming up, and a tremendous amount of love to give for people. I love your energy. It's very contagious. It's very eye-opening. To me, it's inspiring to people. You're really relatable, even though you've done a lot of things that people probably haven't done. You're extremely relatable, and I think that not to use your own words, but you're unsugarcoated, which is another word of saying authentic, I think. And authenticity is, one of the pillars of beauty in my mind. So it really allows you to connect with other people as well too. So, I love your story. I can't wait to read your whole book. So I'll have to get a copy of that soon. But thank you for being a guest on the show today. I really appreciate your time. I'm sure the amount of people that you'll impact from what you said today will just be tremendous. And I'll drop links to all of your media accounts and book accounts, things like that, in the show notes as well too. So you got any parting words that you want to share with our listeners before we head out today?
I mean, just go out there and live your truth and find your adventure. And you don't have to wait to be on your deathbed to do it. You can do it now.
Awesome. I love it.
Thank you.
We appreciate you spending time with us on today's episode and encourage you to continue the conversation to help you keep pushing forward. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as ways to recommend a guest and connect to Truett personally, head over to 1%podcast.com. Be sure to join us next time for more stories of inspiration right here with Truett Taylor on the 1% Podcast.